Christopher Nolan has directed 12 feature films. 12. Every single one of them sits fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. He has worked with Christian Bale, Leonardo DiCaprio, Cillian Murphy, Michael Caine 6 separate times. And in all those years, on all those sets, there's one word actors say he almost never uses. Perfect. Not great. Not good job. Not that'll work. Perfect. So when word got out that Nolan used that exact word on the set of his new film, The Odyssey, and that the actor who earned it was Zendaya, the internet did what the internet does. It lost its mind a little. And when you actually dig into what happened on that set, the story gets a lot more interesting than a single compliment. Let's get into it. First, some context, because this detail only lands if you understand who Christopher Nolan is as a filmmaker. Nolan is famously not a hype man. His whole reputation, going back to Memento, is built on precision. Every shot is planned. Every take has a purpose. He shoots on film, not digital, because he wants total control over the image. This is a director who once stood on set for 12 straight hours just to get natural light exactly right, according to his own crew members. That's not a filmmaker who throws around compliments to make people feel good. That's a filmmaker who tells you when something is working and says almost nothing when it isn't. Which is exactly why Matt Damon's reaction, when he found out about the Zendaya thing, tells you everything. Damon has now worked with Nolan twice, first in Interstellar, now in The Odyssey. And by his own account, in all that time, he has never once gotten the word perfect from Nolan. Not once. His exact words were that he's never even gotten a great. So when he found out Zendaya got a full-on perfect, he and Tom Holland reportedly spent the rest of the shoot comparing notes like kids checking their grades after a test. Did you get anything today? No, I got a good. Moving on. That's not a joke crew members made up for a press tour. That's two Hollywood A-listers, one of them an Academy Award winner, genuinely tracking a director's approval like it's a leaderboard. Now here's where it gets good, because Zendaya's own account of the moment is almost the opposite of how you'd expect a star to talk about praise like this. In her interview, she admitted she didn't even clock how rare the compliment was in the moment. She said it was meaningful to her simply because it came from Nolan, someone she clearly respects. But she wasn't sitting there thinking, this never happens to anyone. She only realized how big a deal it was afterward, once she found out her co-stars weren't getting the same treatment. And she said something else that's worth pulling apart, because it reveals a lot about how Nolan actually directs. She described him as a filmmaker with total confidence, both in his own vision and in the actors he casts. His approach, according to her, is closer to this: you got it, we're done, you're good. No lingering, no second-guessing, no going back for take after take after take just to be safe. Which sounds great until you're the actor on the other side of that silence. Zendaya even admitted that Nolan's minimal feedback style can leave you questioning yourself. Did I do the right thing? Does he like what we're doing? Am I even on the right track? That's the tension at the center of working with a director like this. Less feedback isn't necessarily comforting. Sometimes it's just quiet, and quiet can feel like doubt until proven otherwise. So this wasn't Nolan handing out a trophy. It was one specific loaded word in a career built on almost never using it, landing on one actor in one scene. That's the whole story. And somehow that's more interesting than if he'd said it every day. Now let's talk about what Zendaya is actually playing, because this is where the story stops being just a fun set anecdote and starts being genuinely significant for the film itself. She's playing Athena, not a supporting mortal character, not a soldier, not a background figure in the world of the Odyssey. Athena, the goddess who in Homer's original text is arguably the real engine of the entire story. She's the one who protects Odysseus across his 10-year journey home. She's the one who intervenes with the gods on his behalf. She's the one guiding his son Telemachus and steering his family back together while Odysseus is out there dealing with cyclopes, sirens, and a witch goddess trying to turn his crew into livestock. In other words, this isn't a small supporting part with one good scene. Athena is structurally the connective tissue of the whole narrative. If Nolan's Odyssey lives or dies on Odysseus' journey, feeling emotionally grounded, Athena is a huge part of why that grounding works or doesn't. And that context makes the perfect comment land completely differently. This isn't Nolan casually complimenting an actor in a minor role. This is him signing off in the strongest language he apparently ever uses on the performance, carrying one of the most structurally important characters in a $250 million production. That's not just a nice moment for Zendaya's highlight reel. That's a director telling you, in his own language, that the backbone of his movie is solid. It's also worth remembering where Zendaya was a decade ago. She started as a Disney Channel kid on Shake It Up. Now she's the actor a notoriously exacting filmmaker singles out on his most ambitious project yet. That arc alone says something about how fast the industry's read on her has shifted. Here's where I want to zoom out, because this story is landing at a very specific, very loaded moment for the Odyssey as a whole. This film had its London premiere on July 6th. It hits theaters in the United States and the UK on July 17th. And the scale of this thing is almost hard to overstate. It's Nolan's first film since Oppenheimer swept the Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director. It reunites him with composer Ludwig Göransson and cinematographer Hoyt van Hoytema. And at a reported budget of around $250 million, it's the most expensive film of his entire career. But the technical detail that actually matters here is this. The Odyssey is reportedly the first feature film ever shot entirely on IMAX film cameras. Not partially, entirely. That's a genuinely new benchmark in blockbuster filmmaking, and it's locking down IMAX screen for a 4-week exclusive run. That exclusivity is significant enough that it's reportedly pushing at least one major upcoming tentpole out of the premium format entirely during that window, which almost never happens in the current era of competing franchise releases. So when you put the Zendaya story inside that context, it stops being a cute behind-the-scenes anecdote and starts looking like a data point. A film this technically ambitious, this expensive, and this closely watched has a director who is, by every account, more exacting than usual on this specific project. And within that pressure cooker, one performance still pulled a reaction out of him that his own longtime collaborators say they've never gotten. That's not nothing. That's the kind of detail that quietly builds award season buzz months before critics even see the film, because it's coming directly from people inside the process, not a marketing department. So here's the actual takeaway, stripped of the headline version of this story. This isn't really about one compliment. It's about what that compliment reveals. It tells you Nolan's directing style hasn't softened even on his biggest, most expensive production. It tells you the actors around him are still, after all these years, chasing his approval like it's the hardest grade in the room. And it tells you that the actor playing arguably the most structurally important character in this entire adaptation delivered something that even a director famous for saying almost nothing couldn't stay quiet about. Whether the Odyssey lives up to $250 million in a decade of anticipation, we'll know soon enough. But if Nolan's own read on this performance is anything to go by, Zendaya's Athena might end up being one of the more talked about parts of this entire film. If you want to keep up with everything coming out of the Odyssey between now and release, this channel is where I'll be breaking it down. Subscribe if you want the deep dives, not just the headlines. I'll see you in the next one.